The river will tell you a lot of things. You just have to kind of look, listen, and feel. The first thing we're going to talk about are eddies. Eddies are pieces of water where the water is either moving in an upstream motion or not at all. These are formed from some kind of land protruding into the flow. This could be a small rock or a large island, anything that breaks the downstream flow. Think about it this way. If you shone a light down a dark hallway with some furniture in it, the shadows behind the furniture would be the eddies. Identifying eddies can be quite easy. The water will be doing something quite different compared to the normal main flow. Eddy lines are lines of water next to the eddy, where the water changes directions. Think about those shadows again. If you stood half in the light and half in the shadow, you would be right on the eddy line. In our picture here, you can see the red line marking the eddy line. The blue arrow is showing you the direction of water flow out in the river, so the downstream flow of the water. Then you see that friction line, that eddy line in red, where the flow of the river seems to change directions. Lastly, note the black arrow. The flow of the water is now heading upstream. If at all, you can see that white stagnant water right in the middle. One of the most essential skills you'll need as a paddler is the knowledge of how to navigate an eddy and how to enter and exit an eddy. We'll teach you that. Can you identify the eddy line in this video? We're going to talk about the downstream V. A downstream V will help you decide which course to take on the river. It is a smoother looking V-shaped path of water and often your safest and most desirable option. Upstream V's, which you'll see right beside the downstream V, indicates a submerged rock, which can bring some fun for experienced paddlers, but many beginners would not likely have the skills to enjoy it. Rock ledges can be quite dangerous and best to avoid due to their uncertainty lurking below the water. If we were traveling down this particular river, we would likely take the left option and stick with that nice downstream V. Let's talk about general flow of the river when the river is bending. Flow in a river bend is generally faster around the outside bend and slower around the inside. This difference in flow also plays a part in the depth of rivers. The outside bend tends to also be a bit deeper, while the inside is more shallow. We often have paddlers who get caught up in gravel bars while we go down the river. The gravel bars tend to be on the inside bend of these rivers. One way to avoid this is to read the color of the river. Deeper water is generally a more blue or deeper shade. Shallow water tends to read as more brown. If you stay away from the brown water, you will keep moving. But if you get caught up, you will likely have to get your feet wet while you move your canoe back into the deeper water.
We're just trying to get to the next cache, taking it bend by bend right now. A lot of sweepers down here, a lot of things we kind of got to get around, but all in all, what do you think?
Fingers are cold.
Cold.
Feet are cold.
Yeah, fingers and feet are cold. Yep, we got to get somewhere and get a fire started here before dark. We got a lot of river to row before then if we want to make it in time.
That giant sweeper.
Yeah, I see that. Let's take a look at that right there. That's ridiculous. Boom. I'm going to shut this off before we wreck into the sweeper. Peace.
The water flowing through the outside of a river bend is moving faster than water flowing along the inside. Erosion occurs on the outer banks, and undercut banks eventually collapse, causing trees to topple into the river. A sweeper is a fallen tree hanging over the water that is partially or completely blocking passage. A strainer is a tree that has collapsed from the bank entirely and is mostly submerged with limbs protruding out. Water is able to flow through freely, but paddlers and their gear can become trapped by the trees and pinned underwater. The ability to recognize these threats and take the necessary steps to avoid them is key to the brothers' survival.
That was a nice break from my voice, wasn't it? All right, if you get caught up in a sweeper or a strainer, they say to lean into the feature versus leaning away from it. By leaning into it, it allows you the opportunity to try to climb up above the water level and on top of the sweeper or strainer. Leaning away from it causes the river to catch your hull and flip your canoe, sending you down where you may get caught up in the strainer. We don't want that. That's the last thing that we want. So that's why they do tell you to lean into it in hopes that you can grab a hold and climb up a branch. Best to keep an eye out and avoid this altogether. The ability to read a river is a very important skill, especially when you're trying to keep yourself safe and having a good time. You can look for obstructions or dangers, color changes in the water, downstream bees, or eddies to allow you to exit the river. Listen for white water. White water can indicate a gradient change. It could indicate something fun coming up, or it might actually indicate a danger like a ledge. Feel for me means to use your gut. We know our limits, and it's important to know your limits when you are on the river and respect your limits.